someone votes for something.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight. This is an opportunity for our candidates to inform us of their grasp of the issues and a chance to ask some specific questions of our candidates. To get us started this evening, I'm going to call on Raleigh to lead us in an invocation and pledge. Turn your attention to Raleigh, please.
Stand, please. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you again for another wonderful day in a beautiful country. We thank you for the campaign season. Sometimes we wonder whether it's worth it, and probably the candidates wonder whether it's worth it also. But we thank you nevertheless for it, for the opportunity to hear these people and get some of their thoughts and ideas and concepts as to what they think should be done about the problems that we face. We ask thy guidance upon us, upon them. We ask thy saving hand upon this once great republic, and that you will give all of us the wisdom that we need for the times in which you placed us. We ask these things in Yeshua the Christ's righteous and holy name. And remain standing, please, and we'll do the pledge to the flag. In the corner. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's a republic again.
Okay, a couple of little fiddly bits. Restrooms are out the back doors to the right. We have, around the room, we have 4 people wearing blue ribbons. Gentlemen, if you can raise your hands. These are our stewards this evening. These are the folks that you can go to if you need assistance or if you have questions that you need answers to later. So look for our folks with the purple ribbons. A couple of thank yous. Special thanks to the People's Oversight Commission for hosting this evening's event. Thanks to David McBee Learning Center of Loon Lake for our stationery supplies. A thank you to Lodi Water for supplying water this evening. And a thank you to the Near Group for providing treats for us. Okay. I also want to mention that I see that candidates have some information, some takeaway information for you on the wall here to my right, on the tables here. I wanted to mention that there were 6 candidates that asked me to be sure to let you know that they were unable to attend this evening because of prior commitments. Those candidates not able to be here are Emil Carruthers, Don Dashiell, Shelley Short, Kendall Allen, Joel Kretz, and Joe Pakutis. Those folks were unable to attend because of prior engagements. This evening we have 13 candidates. The way we will run the forum is we will give each candidate in alphabetical order 3 minutes to do an introductory talk to us to share the information that they would like us to have. We will then take a break. When we come back from break, each candidate will be asked one of the written questions that has been submitted. They will be given 1 minute for the answer. After round 1, each candidate will be given a second and a third question in order, again by alphabetical order. And on the second and third question, candidates, you can either select another written question, you can choose to answer a question of any candidate or even yourself that has gone before, or you can pick someone from the audience. So question number 1 will be written. Questions 2 and 3, you have choices. All right. With that, I believe we're ready to begin. Candidates, with the number of candidates that we do have, I apologize ahead of time. I'm going to have to fall back on my junior high school teacher principles. I'm going to be very strict about the time. I will hold up a small American flag to alert you that you have 15 seconds to finish up your speech or the answer to your question. I'll be standing over here. So we're going to go ahead and get started with your 3-minute introduction. James Acker, running for 7th District, position 1. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you for all coming out today. It's actually just really good to see all of you. Again, my name is James Acker. Can you folks hear me?
No.
Okay, we'll use the mic.
I'm told you have to hold it relatively close.
You have to turn it on the bottom, push the button until it lights up green.
This isn't happening on time, is it?
No. And he gets an extra half point for being brave and going first.
Come on.
Yes, it did. Thank you. Now can you hear me? Outstanding. Again, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight. It is actually wonderful to see every one of you. Again, my name is James Apter. I'm a libertarian. I live down in Meade. I actually grew up in Spokane County, went to Riverside High School. I lived in Elk, I lived in Charleroi. I worked with my father in construction, taught me how to build houses. Built 24 houses in 12 years, most of them here in Stevens County, most of them actually in Suncrest. So I got very familiar with Ken and Mike, if you know either one of them, building inspectors for this county. When I was working for my father, I had the opportunity to go to school. Went to SCC, got my degree in network engineering. Shortly thereafter, I blew out my right knee. Went to Edmonds Community College, learned construction management and building inspection. Let me ask you this, who here is actually sick and tired of our current political situation, our current political climate?
Everybody that's alive.
Well, like you, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's a huge reason why I'm running. It's a huge reason why I'm running as a libertarian. I was watching TV, like all of you, watching the dysfunction in Washington, D.C. and here in Olympia. It boggled my mind that the children, so to speak, couldn't play nicely together. I'm not a politician. I'm not. I don't want to be a politician. I would rather be a statesman. In my opinion, the difference between a statesman and a politician is a simple one. A politician will ask, what am I getting out of this? Every time a bill comes up. A statesman will ask two questions. One, is what I'm voting on constitutional? The other question is, does it work for you? Does it work for the people that I represent? If I get no to either question, it's a no. It's a no vote, automatically. In addition, I'm here to give you an actual choice. Not just between Republican and Republican like we've had year after year after year. When someone says, well, who are you going to vote for this year? Well, I'm going to vote for the Republican. Well, which one? You're not getting much of a choice. I'm here to give you a real choice. I'm here to make a real difference. One of the other things too is I think that being a statesman is a term of service. We're not meant to be there for 10, 15 years. We're meant to do our time and let somebody else lead. Let the next generation lead. Remember, at the end of the day, you are the ultimate power in this nation. You, not the politicians, not even me as a statesman. That's how a representative government works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alger. And now candidate for sheriff, Ken Barker. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. I know it's hot. My name's Ken Barker, and I moved over here 32 years ago. My wife and I and my daughter built a house. My daughter said when she gets married, I'm not going to marry a guy that wants to build a house, because she had to help build a house. We've been involved in the community going on that same period of time. I retired here at Stevens County Fire 1 as a district training officer. I also have a background in contract investigator, which is not the same thing as an investigator. Also have a background in narco. And working in those fields, I have acquired some training as far as administration is concerned, and I would like to be able to be your sheriff and return our county back to our constitutional principles and our God-given rights. I fully intend to protect your rights, your liberties, and your property rights. Okay? We've had a lot of discussions about rights such as your gun rights. Okay? Don't freak out on that. We are all responsible for our own defense. It says so in the Constitution. We are to have our own weapons and be able to use them and take care of ourselves. A lot of us live out in the country, okay? I live out. We've been scammed. We've had people drive into our property and scan us, looking for what they can steal, break in, or whatever. I'm not home. My wife is. Guess what she goes out on the deck with? Not a broom handle, okay? She has met them face to face with the proper tools to take care of the job. My daughter graduated from Deer Park High School. My grandson graduated from Deer Park High School. They both went to Eastern, so we've been here for a while. We understand what's going on. With that, I thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Next, we have Tony Booth for State Senator.
Good evening, everybody. I really just like to thank the group out here for stepping up and putting a pledge forward to try to make a difference in our community. One of the biggest things that I get asked to me is, why am I running? The real important reason for me running is I've been in the community now almost 12 years. The one thing I've noticed during my 12 years of being in this community, jobs have always been tough. And if you look around and you look at different communities that are thriving a little bit, people are going to work, their crime is a little bit less. There's lots of changes out there that need to be made to our employment. So I've looked back and I asked myself, why am I running? One of the things I've got great experience with is I know how to hire people, and I also know how to manage them. So when you look at those two aspects of what my job is of going into this position, I have a great written plan out there. I hope you've all seen it. If you have, it's sitting over there. Please, if you have not seen it, please take it with you and take a look at it. I think it makes great sense. Number two is our taxes. I think our taxes are out of control. I've been solid from day one. I don't think we need any more taxes. As a business person, I think we need to learn how to budget what we have. Just raising more taxes is not the issue. Our schools. I look at our schools, and I've been a huge supporter of our schools in this community, especially Stevens County. All of my children go to school here in Colville. One just graduated this year as a senior. My youngest daughter, Ashley, she's going into 3rd grade. I'm very familiar with what the schools are doing here, and I support them 100%. The one thing that I do not support is asking for more money for these schools. We got to figure out a way how we budget it and the expenses and all the issues that are going in. And I call it maybe the fluff cycle a little bit. There's a lot of extra money going in, and we can look at this and we can manage, find out exactly where our dollars are going and how they're being spent. Why I think that's important? Because I think everybody should be involved. I don't think we should just raise a levy next year just because we need to raise one. I think we need to look at it, figure out where this money is going, how it's going, and run it more like a business. The other thing I'd like to talk about is land management. I am definitely for property rights, being a property holder myself. I don't want no one telling me how to run my property, but I do want to be a good steward of the land. There's lots of different options floating around out there between Ponderay, Ferry, Okanagan on different property rights. I think it goes right down to the individual, what you have going on and what your needs are. Been married 21 years. I'm a successful business owner. I have 4 great kids. I believe in working hard, stepping up and taking this position. Put yourself in my shoes and think about this for a minute. I've been a good giver of Stevens County, Okanagan County, giving back from being a successful business owner. Imagine what I could do for you if I was at Olympia. Thank you for coming tonight, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Next up, we have Michael Brunson for the position of Assessor.
Good evening. I'm Mike Brunson from Springdale. I'm running for Stevens County Assessor. I have 14 years experience in property evaluations, 11 years as a real estate agent here in Stevens County. Also, this is my 3rd year as a board member on the Stevens County Board of Equalization. I'm running for Assessor because the petitions that I saw that came to the Board of Equalization, I saw significant property tax increases with no apparent reason, it seemed, at least to the taxpayer. And I think that problem needs to be resolved, and I think that it can be resolved in a fairly short manner. Now, what I'd like to say is I'm the only candidate running for Assessor who in the last 10 years, for every year, has walked Stevens County and conducted property evaluations. I was with the people when they went through the 2007 growth management plan. I was also with my clients when the downturn in the market occurred. I too own property, and I have had my property go from $800 a year up to $1,380 a year with no improvements. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you something. It's just not enough to be a real estate agent or an appraiser to be a good assessor. I'm a retired Air Force officer, and I was assigned to Fairchild twice. In fact, the only time I was ever employed by the federal government was while I was with the Air Force. The second time I was at Fairchild, I was the unit commander. I was responsible for personnel for training. I had a $600,000 annual budget that I was responsible for to run my unit. The assessor's office has a budget of $831,000. Most of that is personnel salaries and personnel benefits. I can fix the things that are wrong in the assessor's office. Two of the things I would do right away. If you look at the homepage of the assessor's office, if you go all the way down, it says, Al Taylor says, he may have to increase property taxes to meet the county budget. That's contrary to the RCW. Property taxes can only be assessed at 100% fair market value. The other thing I want to do is if any property owner is being assessed additional assessments for water, sewer, and power, I will remove those assessments. And the third thing I'll do is I'll make the petition process a lot easier. I'm still on the board. We convened yesterday. If you don't understand what the Board of Equalization is, the board members are appointed by the county commissioners based on our expertise and knowledge of real estate. This is my third year. I'm a senior member on the board. So I would just like to say thank you very much for having us here tonight. Thank you for coming out. And whatever you do, please vote in the primary. Vote for Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brunson. Next up, we have Brian Dansel, State Senator.
All right. Well, thanks first to the group for having this here tonight, and you ladies and gentlemen for coming out. Really honored to be here. You know, this was my first year in Olympia, and some of the things that I think that we were able to accomplish were kind of landmark pieces of legislation. The first one being that for the first time in 25 years, we were able to reform the Growth Management Act and allow Ferry and Pend Oreille County to get out of the Growth Management Act. I think that's a huge win for private property rights throughout the state. It's the first crack in the dam. We're going to continue to push this so we can get everybody out of the Growth Management Act like the state of Florida did in 2011. On top of that, we were able to get our business handled on time and on budget without raising taxes for the first time in 10 years. So when there's talk about no raised taxes, I'm glad that I was able to deliver the results that a lot of folks aspire to do. We didn't raise taxes. We didn't go extra sessions. We didn't cost the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars to play politics. We got in there and we got business handled. We got done on time. And I'm such a believer in that I sponsored a bill that would require the state legislature to do that every year, or else legislators per diem pay would be taken away from them. If you put your own wallet on the line, you're going to have a lot more incentive to get done on time and not just mess around with taxpayer money. On top of that, we were able to defeat a gas tax increase that would have been 11.5 cents per gallon. We were able to defeat Governor Inslee's carbon fuel emission standard that would have added $1 per gallon in the name of correcting our environmental ills, as he puts it. We don't have environmental ills. Finally, one of the things that I was really proud of is that in the first time in 70 years, the state of Washington didn't buy a single acre of land with tax money. There wasn't 1 acre bought. There's no more increase in public land today than there was at the beginning of the year. That's the first time that's happened in 70 years. The reason that's important is because in diminishing tax bases such as Stevens Ferry, Pend Oreille, Okanagan, and northern part of Spokane County, we can't afford to lose that tax base. So every time that we have a special interest group that looks to either give land and take it off the tax rolls, or a state agency that wants to buy land and take it off the tax rolls, the net loss is that it's a tax shift to you and to me and to everybody that pays taxes. I guess I would just ask that when we get in the campaign mode of asking people to think about hope and change, let's think about that a little bit. Do you want us to not get done on time? Do you want the Growth Management Act to be around forever? Do you want us to go buy a lot more land? Do you want us to have the low carbon fuel standard that Governor Inslee wanted? Do you want 11.5 cent per gallon gas tax increase? I don't want that change. I think that the right change that happened was the change that was made last year. I appreciate you being here tonight. It's an honor to serve as your senator, and I hope you stand with me in this election. Thank you very much.
Easterbrook's assessor.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I appreciate everybody showing up tonight as well. My name is Mark Easterbrooks, and I was born in Colville, and I graduated from Deer Park High School in 1979. I joined the Navy that same year, and I spent over 30 years working as an active duty member of the Navy and a few years for the Department of Defense. I've had many jobs and that has provided me with the experience and leadership qualities that ultimately led to assignments that required ever-increasing levels of management and leadership skills to be effective. I was finally handed the ultimate set of orders and asked to be the chief of the Naval Aircrew Inspection Team for the entire Naval Reserve P-3 program, where I had direct authority to make and enforce policy for my respective area of expertise. I have over 2 years of experience working as an aviation equipment specialist for the Department of the Navy, where I learned how civilians work and interact with military and government entities, where the government was in authority and the civilians, including myself, were represented by a federal union, and I got the opportunity to serve as a bargaining unit employee and an assistant union steward. The person that Stevens County chooses to lead the assessor's office must have a solid background in challenging assignments that require not only knowing how the end result is arrived at, but how to lead and inspire the people that get the real work done. That person also must have the educational background in business and management, which I have in the form of a master's degree from Gwinnett University, to complete the profile of an effective modern leader and ensure the assessor's office maintains the highest degree of effectiveness and professionalism. I represent all of those qualities with a track record of verifiable success at the highest levels of my expertise. If an organization is run effectively and efficiently, then leadership and management will necessarily be inextricably linked. Leadership is more than just a noun, it's a gift. It's a gift given by those who follow. Managers manage schedules, deadlines, and budgets. Leaders inspire and motivate. One of my biggest challenges in my career was to keep people motivated and engaged in the face of an entire naval program facing decommissioning, with over 3,000 active duty and reserve personnel either losing their jobs or facing reassignment. These types of events are rare, but the experience I gained could not be obtained by any other means than actually being involved in such an evolution. Many challenges face our assessor's office, including a transition to a new leader. That new leader must have the experience, the education, and strength of character to develop his or her team so that the ultimate goal of providing Stevens County with the most effective, informative, and efficient assessor's office possible, and to ensure every tax dollar is spent according to the will of the people and the rule of law. Thank you.
Oh, you're great. Thank you, Mr. Easterbrooks. Okay, next up, we have Connie LaRue running for the position of coroner.
I can almost see over the top of this box here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Everybody, can you hear me at the back of the room? Okay, thank you very much. My name is Connie LaRue, and I'm running for coroner. And I appreciate you're all coming out in this weather, but it's nice and cool in here, huh? It's really delightful in here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you first about, I'm going to give you some highlights of my qualifications, first of all. And then we'll go over about the coroner's office itself. Okay, so about me. I received my registered nurse degree and license in 1970. I then earned an advanced degree as a nurse practitioner. Altogether, I have 9 years of undergraduate and postgraduate education. I am the only person in this race for coroner who has a medical license and a medical title. I practiced anesthesia for 20 years of my life. And during that time, I was advising physicians in life and death issues as their patients were under anesthesia. For 18 years, I owned and operated a nationwide anesthesia business. So that tells you that I do know how to run a business. And this coroner's office is a business. It really is. I have been a paralegal for 14 years now, and that's very important in the coroner's office also. I have apprenticed with coroners all across the state of Washington, and they have taught me the business of being a coroner. I went to coroner school, and I want to show you all the textbook for coroner school is 400 pages long and is very, very detailed about the job of a coroner, okay? For some people who say there is no coroner school, if you were to go on Google and Google that, you would come up with over 10 million articles and websites to check out there. So I've gone to coroner school, and I am now a medical legal death investigator. I do not do autopsies, no I do not, because only a qualified pathologist will do an autopsy. RNs do not do autopsies, and certainly nurses' aides do not do autopsies. Now, why do I want to be the coroner? You have to believe that after practicing anesthesia for 20 years of my life, I am really used to dealing with people who do not talk back. Does that make sense? Okay. But on a more serious note now, really, I am the best qualified person for this job. I have the education, the degree, the title, the license, and the business experience, which is so important in this office, the business experience to get the job done. Okay, I want to save money for this county, and we'll have to get into this at the wrap-up of this whole thing. I want you to know that I, again, am the only candidate with a medical license and title. My education and my training meet or exceed those of the present coroner. I don't think that the people of this county want to step backwards to a nurse's aide. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have John Olson running for the office of assessor.
Thank you. I'm John Olson. I'm very grateful and humbled to have this privilege to run for county assessor. It's a historic time. In my lifetime in Stevens County, it's been over 60 years, there's only been 3 county assessors, Roy Demarest, Blanche Easted, and Al Taylor. So it is a historic time. We've had 11 presidents of the United States at the same time. My life is Stevens County. I love Stevens County, and I love the citizens, and I love our way of life. I was born here. My wife was born here. We raised our children here. My dad was born in Old Marcus before the dam was put in. My great-grandfather homesteaded in Stevens County in 1893. I have the qualifications, the experience, and the leadership to lead the assessor's office in its current challenges and in its future challenges. This is something that I just didn't wake up and prepare for because Al Taylor is stepping down. In 1978, I came to work for Stevens County Assessor's Office. I worked for Blanche Easted for almost 20 years as a real property appraiser. I have appraised over 30,000 taxable parcels in my career, from Lake Spokane to the Canadian border. I know Stevens County and its terrain and its features. I've been over almost every square mile of this 2,000 square mile county. I've been certified by the Department of Revenue, the Association of the Washington State Association of County Assessors. I've been trained by the International Association of Assessing Officers. I have about 19 different certificates and accreditations. It's been I've had a very rewarding career as a county assessor. The leadership has come through my military experience. I've just retired out of the National Guard, where I've had a career of over 30 years. I've been deployed 3 times. I've been awarded the Bronze Star for meritorious service and leadership in combat operations in Iraq. I've managed a $500 million contract for the Department of Defense supporting 2,500 contract linguists in Afghanistan, giving 80% of the units over there the combat capabilities of being combat effective. I appreciate you, Stevens County. I appreciate this opportunity to run for county assessor, and I want to thank you very much, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Next up, Lori Sampson, running for the office of coroner.
Good evening, my name is Lori Sampson, and I'm running for the position of Stevens County Coroner, and I'd like to thank the POC for hosting this candidate night. The voters of our county have 3 candidates that are running for the position of coroner this year. I am the best candidate for this job, and here are the reasons why. I have been formally trained by 2 of the top nation forensic pathologists for 2 solid years as a medical death investigator and concurrently as an autopsy technician for the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office. These doctors taught me everything that I would need to know to function independently as a medical legal death investigator in their absence and on their behalf. They taught me how to conduct a postmortem examination on my own. They taught me how to draw toxicology specimens, how to analyze complex medical records and lab reports, and how to use this medical information to sign a death certificate properly, just to name a few. In 2001, after 2 years of study and training with these forensic pathologists, they sent me to the University of St. Louis Medical School to sit for the board registry exam with the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators. I am currently one of 1,269 members that have achieved this skill level throughout the United States, and I'm the only one residing in Stevens County. My formal education and experience will ultimately save our county money. I know which cases that require an autopsy and which cases that do not. I have personally assisted in more than 2,000 autopsies during my employment at the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office, and I know what to look for. Each case that our coroner sends to Spokane County costs the autopsy of $2,500 to $3,000 per case. This is the only service that Spokane County provides our agency. The fee is only for a written report and a medical exam containing their findings. I have served our county as a deputy coroner since moving here in 2011. I have been a medical death investigator for 15 years. I cover the office for the current coroner while she is away or on vacation. I know exactly how this office is run inside and out, and this will make for a smooth transition for our office. Not every death is a criminal death, but every death deserves a quality, independent medical investigation by a board-certified medical legal death investigator. I will use my 24 years of medical experience to investigate your loved one's death and to speak for them to tell their story. I am the only candidate here tonight that is endorsed by the current Stevens County Coroner, Patty Hancock, and I'm also endorsed by the Stevens County Republic Central Committee. I'm asking for your vote for the position of Stevens County Coroner this election, and thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Ms. Sampson. Next, Steve Schroeder, running for the position of sheriff.
Good evening. Thank everyone for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Steve Schroeder, and I went to Colville High School here for 12 years, graduated here, and I live out on the Williams Lake Road on my parents' farm. Been a farmer most of my life. Farmers are important. We all like to eat. I think farmers should really be looked out for myself. I'm a firm believer in open range. I'm a firm believer in raising cattle. And I'll also do whatever necessary. The ambulance service we have here is a pretty nice ambulance service, and I would do everything necessary as a sheriff to make sure that it would be a top-notch ambulance service. Anything we do to help them, I think should be done. The drug problems in this county are pretty severe, and they need to be addressed. Northport, there's been informed there's some meth houses and some heroin dealers up there that nothing's been done about it, and it needs to be addressed because the people up there are having lots and lots of trouble with it. Cub Falls is the same, Colville's bad, City Park in Colville's bad. And I think if we all work together to cure that problem, we could maybe make a better life for our children. Another thing I'm really interested in is the fact that animal cruelty. I'm an animal lover. I like dogs and I like horses. I like every kind of animal there is. And down Suncrest here, a while back, there was 14 dogs chained to some trees and they froze to death in the snow and ice. I think it's kind of a sad way to go, you know. I don't think anybody in here would like to be chained to a tree and freeze to death. So I think those animal cruelty charges should be addressed and they should be treated accordingly. There's a little deal here. People like to take oath of office. A lot of people have mentioned that to me. I think what a guy should do is should look at the legal end of that, and if a person needs to step forward and take a legal oath of office, then yes, he should, if that's what the law requires. As far as the federal agents coming to town, personally, I think they should register with the Stevens County Sheriff's Department, and I think then they should state their business and what they're going to do. And then if its situation should arise, the person should address the public and see what the public wants the answer to. If the public voted for me and the public wanted the answer to give to the feds, that's what the answer should be. So at any rate, I'm Steve Schroeder, and so that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder. Next, we have C.J. Wolf running for the position of assessor.
Thank you. Hello, I am C.J. Wolf, and I am currently employed by the Stevens County Assessors. People have been saying that I'll be a good assessor someday, and that the generations coming are going to help us right the ship and bring our country back where it should belong. I believe I have some answers. I believe I'm an educating candidate, someone who has the ability to educate the taxpayer, because I'm also educating myself. Being employed at the assessor while I've been there, there's been great people in that office who are willing to teach me how the office is running. It's been a great experience. A few things I've learned. First, the 1% increase. I'm getting off of my political talk to educate you real quick. I just need to say this. The 1% increase, that is for taxing districts, not the budget. Taxing districts can increase 1%. So a fire district, a firehouse, or a school district can request 1% increase in their budget. That will affect the levy rate, which will be calculated against your home values, your land values. Because we're budget-based currently, what happens if your levy rates come up? Hopefully, your values will come down. We're supposed to meet the budget, no more, no less. The assessor's position is one to evenly distribute the taxes among all taxpayers. I stand there making sure those districts do not get more than what they need or request, okay? I make sure the taxpayers don't pay more than they need. So, real quick, just had to get that out there. Next, okay. I'm 5th generation to this county. I was born and raised here, my family's here, I'm raising my family here. Got a little boy on the way, any minute now, so I'll make this quick. Any minute, yeah, I'm a little nervous. Whenever I see her, I lose my train of thought because I'm a daddy, I'm a nervous wreck. But that's what I'm running for. Dadgummit, I'm trying to create a community where my family is healthy, where the future kids in this community are healthy. I've been speaking at Chamber of Commerce's, trying to help homeowners and businessmen strive and get better in this community. Not survive, but strive for excellence. This community is poised for some great growth, I believe, and I want to be part of that. I know how businesses run. I've been part of Wolf Mountain Log Homes, 13 years construction. I know the value of homes in this county, the realities of building a home, sustaining a home, and buying a home. How to run a business. It is tough in this county to run a business. And I applaud the men who are still doing it, men and women. I want to encourage those people. I know they can't do everything at once. They're trying to make a product, advertise it, and sell it. They don't have time to learn how am I supposed to save money on taxes. They want to believe the men and women they vote into office can protect them so they can focus on their work and feeding their babies. I'm there to help you. I have things I can educate you on. Literature in the back, please find me. I'm trying to do blogs so that When I hear questions you're asking, I can get that information out to you. I know computers are scary. Our office is assisted by them, not driven by them. Okay? When you come to the counter, you're going to talk to somebody. We're going to help you at the counter. You put a number in the computer. It's not going to tell you your values. It's going to assist us. We will work with you. Thank you. Please invest your vote in me and our community.
We're going to take a 15-minute break so you can stretch your legs. When we come back, we will start asking questions. All right, we'll see you in 15 minutes. Now ready to ask questions of the candidates. Again, in round one, these will be from the written questions that have been submitted. We had volunteers go through and try to establish the most asked question in the written questions so that we can get that question to the candidates. Rounds 2 and 3, the candidates will be allowed to choose either a second written question, you may respond to any previously asked question, or you can select someone from the audience on rounds 2 and 3. So first up, Mr. Apker. And so I'm the messenger. Here comes the question.
Okay.
Last week, NBC's Dateline featured the story of Sarah Pierce, wrongfully convicted in 2002 of a brutal attack in Idaho on Linda LeBrain. Sarah Pierce was finally released after 12 years in prison when efforts by the Idaho Innocence Project resulted in a deal cut by Idaho prosecutors to allow Pierce to go free but remain a convicted felon, never to be able to sue the state for wrongful conviction, and forced Mrs. Pierce to pay $50 a month restitution to the victim for 1,000 months. The prosecutor could not admit she was wrong. Citizens should have a legitimate concern about elected officials who use their authority to cover up mistakes, do favors for their buddies so that they will do favors for them, take the easy or lazy way out by passing the buck when hard choices must be made, or focus on saving money at the cost of violating rights, breaking laws, and violating moral principles. So the question...
That's a heck of a statement. That's a wobble.
That's my question. So the question is, have you ever fully admitted you were wrong or uncovered a colleague or superior making wrong choices and made amends on an error that had clearly harmed another person, and when you recognized you or another were wrong, did you have any trouble with your conscience until you could put it right? In fairness to Mr. Apker,
Wow.
in fairness to Mr. Apker, this question was actually addressed to all candidates. So thank you for answering those questions.
Wow, that is one heck of a question. I'm not gonna lie, that is. To put it bluntly, I admit my mistakes. I admit when I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. There's no question about it. If I wronged you in some way, I'm gonna go up to you and I'm gonna say, you know what, I'm wrong. I screwed up. How can we fix this? It's pride, it's vanity, it's ego to sit there and say, no, I'm not wrong. It's completely somebody else's fault. Admit when you're wrong. Admit when you screwed up. I found that people are a lot more forgiving if you would simply admit those things. If you don't, realistically, if you don't admit when you're wrong, then you need to go someplace else. And you need to find whatever soul that you need, whatever forgiveness you need, someplace else, because it's not coming from me.
Mr. Barker.
Okay. Say yes. Just say yes.
Mr. Barker, your question is, RCW 3616-040 says in part, every person elected to county office shall, before he or she enters upon the duties of his or her office, take and subscribe an oath or affirmation. Considering that your opponent assumed office January 1st, 2011, and did not take his oath of office for that term until March 12th, 2014, do you consider him to be the lawful sheriff of Stevens County?
I thought I was going to get the answer to the other one. The other one would have been easy if I'm wrong. You know why? Ask my wife. She'll tell you. Your question. The person, any person that doesn't take an oath, that is supposed to take an oath going into an office before they take that office, is intruding on that office, is illegally taking that position, is creating the color of law, is not supposed to be there doing that office job. The oath that we are supposed to take, you take an oath, you pay the fee, it's put in a volume and assigned a page number for all of you to see, okay? So with that, if he didn't take his oath, and then when he first came into office, which he didn't take it until March of this year, that means all that time that he was in office was illegal, and all of the crimes or investigations or arrests that he did was technically illegal also. Yep. Thank you.
Mr. Booth. Mr. Booth's question, I have a note here, it's a two-part question. Regarding your plans for unemployment in our area, will any of your attention be directed towards employers providing training or counseling to bad employees so they don't pass the buck on to the next employer, but try to work realistically with what they have available? The second part, and will any of your attention be directed towards facilitating employment for single parents of school-age children, since school hours do not coincide with working hours, and there are few affordable, safe daycare options for children before or after school?
I think that's a great question, since I'm more about jobs, and that's what I've been supporting. The one thing that I would have to say is, we do need more training. The hardest thing that is, it's kind of more up to the employer than it is to the employees. The employers should have a good plan in effect that trains their employees, and there should be a written plan between the employer and the employee. Sometimes you can take a cow to water, but sometimes it does not drink the water. And if we've all been around, we've seen that time after time. I don't know if there's anything set in stone. So part two is I have opened and I have put to the public a job fair. And that job fair is going to be open to everyone in District 7. And Cody actually here is one of my employees that I've already hired in my office here in Colville that's already taken that role to place. As far as I would consider the mom that has the kids going to school, those jobs are just going to depend on what's out there, and I hope they are. Thank you.
Mr. Brunson. Mike, your question is, Kathy McMorris supports amnesty for illegals. Do you support amnesty for illegals? There is a follow-up. Amnesty is defined as allowing anyone to stay in this country who entered illegally.
I do not support amnesty. What I believe is that there are several federal laws on the books that aren't being enforced. And in fact, they're being altered by our current president of the United States. And that's making the situation worse. Absolutely not. Amnesty is not the answer. They did that back in 1996. They gave amnesty to the 11 million illegal immigrants. They're not undocumented, they're illegal. They gave them amnesty, and they thought that solved the problem. Well, now we're back up to 13 million illegals in the country. So amnesty is not the answer. The answer is we have federal laws on the books that aren't being enforced. And that's what we need to do to work our illegal immigrant problem. Thank you.
Mr. Dansel, your question is, are you willing to stand for our constitutional rights even if you may be the only representative doing so?
That's a real easy question. Yes, I am, and yes, I have done that. But also, I would take it a step further and say that you have to be able to take on your own party from time to time too. Too much in this era, too many times in this era. There's a question that will hit every legislator, every elected official, and that question is, are you going to stand on principle, or are you going to stand in line with the party? So obviously constitutionality is a very important thing to me, and so I would never do anything that was unconstitutional. But also, I believe that you have to stand up to your own party. It's easy to throw bombs at the other party. That's a very easy thing. That doesn't take a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage when you have 25 other senators that are wanting you to vote for a gas tax increase, for example, or to vote for the DREAM Act, and you say no. And that's what I did. That's what I would always do. Thank you.
Mr. Easterbrook, your question is, if a 1930s-style mass lengthy depression occurs where tens of thousands of people are losing their properties, what would you do to assist in easing the situation?
Well, a similar question was posed last time we were together, and if a situation like that did occur, can you hear me okay in the back?
Yes.
In 1929, when the market lost 50% of its value, today, the Federal Reserve would have two choices. They would either have to inject liquidity into the market, or they would have to pull it back. To respond to the question directly, no one is really going to know what property values are going to do if that occurred. If property values increased, for whatever the reason would be, which I would believe they would not, I would try to use the authority I have in that office to freeze those taxes and to reassess them at current lower market values. Not wait for the cycle of 1 year or 4 years to come down the pipe. We don't have the time for that. The people would probably already be in foreclosure. If I had the authority to do it, that's exactly what I would do. 5 more minutes, please.
Ms. LaRue, your question is, Patty Hancock, the current coroner, holds a master's degree in forensic nursing. Do you hold this degree? If not, please explain your forensic medicological education as well as the duration of this education.
I do not have a master's degree, but I do have, like I said earlier, 9 years of college education, which led me to my degree for anesthesia. Okay, and I have 20 years of anesthesia practice behind me. And as far as forensics go, this is cool. I have searched the internet for forensics classes, and I thought it would be wise to take some of these. They all pretty much deal with how to take a pap smear. So I thought it would be better for me just to go and apprentice with the coroners around the state of Washington, which is what I've done. So I have now apprenticed, like I said, with the 5 coroners around the state of Washington who have taught me the business of being a coroner. And that's what I need to do the job. I've also done the medical legal death investigator course, so I have that behind me. And that's what everybody else in the coroner's office does. I was able to take it before I entered the coroner's office, which is absolutely unheard of, but I did it. Thank you.
Mr. Olson, your question is, the 1878 Constitution for the state of Washington states in Article 5, Section 23, all lands within the state are declared to be alluvial, and feudal tenures with all their incidents are prohibited. Since the 1878 Constitution permitted Washington to be admitted into the Union by the Enabling Act of Congress on February 22nd, 1889, and both the Washington Supreme Court and the United States Supreme Court have acknowledged this fact, and the only Constitution you can obtain a certified copy from the National Archives and Records Administration is the 1878 Constitution. Washington State Archives says the 1878 Constitution has never been rescinded by a vote of the people. Alloidium is land held in one's own right, incapable of being liened or foreclosed, would you be willing to research how and why we are encumbered with property taxes on land that the only valid constitution said was alluvial?
Well, I'm always willing to do research, but alluvial, it's kind of a big word that I haven't even heard of until today. And as property originally is not supposed to be encumbered, but is sold in the markets and everything like that, it gets encumbered through mortgages and banks. And so I know it can be foreclosed on through the private manners, but whether the government has the right to take it back, under that Constitution as stated, I don't know if that's legal. But I don't even know if our government even pays any attention to that Constitution.
Nope. Nope. Government
I'm gonna take it
you
there.
don't pay your property taxes. Look it up, bud.
Luck of the draw. Ms. Sampson, your question is, are you a nurse or a nurse's aide?
I am licensed in the state of Washington as nurse's aide, and I work at the hospital as an ER tech in the emergency room as necessary. Nurse's aide is something to be proud of. It's not something to be belittled. There's a lot of them that work in this community, and we need them, and it's a very important position. It's not my main focus, though. The last 15 years I've worked as a medical legal death investigator. I do have a college degree, and I am board certified by the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators, which takes 2 years to get it on top of my college degree. And I think I'm going to fit in line with Miss Patty Hancock. I don't have a master's in anything, but I have proven myself to her and earned her credentials. I've earned her support in the community.
Mr. Schroeder, your question is, if you are elected sheriff, how will you handle animal cruelty cases?
Well, like I said before, it's real sad that animals get treated cruelly. I think it's real sad that they get chained up and left alone without water, food, or shade. And if I come upon the scene, it will be dealt with accordingly, according to the type of the crime. Again, there's a lot of places these animals can go, and a guy could have facilities where they can be taken away, and these people should properly be charged. That's the way I feel about that.
Mr. Wolf, your question is, while the VOCC might not raise taxes, it is noticed that in the past 2 to 3 years, valuations of properties have gone up, but sales prices have remained stagnant. What method will you as assessor use to determine values? Will they be based on sale prices?
Okay. Real quick, BOCC, Board of County Commissioners, if you didn't understand that. So, value is going up, we are budget based, levy rates should go down. As far as the statement that sales have not gone up, it's my beard, I don't know. Our chief appraiser does a sales analysis every year, so does the Department of Revenue. We are at 95% of what the state says we need to be market value, which is very close. Previously, we were at 80%, we're coming up to accurate. The closer we are to market value at what the state interprets, as well as what our chief appraisers are reporting, the better the state utilities pay into the county budget. Our railroads, our power companies. When we are at close to 100% value, the state utilities are assessed at 100% value. So I'm going to say, please check the facts, get a hold of our office, and make sure the answers are answered correctly. Not right now.
Candidates around rounds 2 and 3, you have choices. You can either be brave and ask for another written question. You can answer one of the questions that has been asked previously, or you may select somebody from the audience. So this is how we'll do rounds 2 and 3. So we'll run through each of the candidates twice, and then we'll have our wrap-up with a 1.5-minute closing by each statement. Mr. Apker, you are up first.
Well, I've always said that I will answer any questions, so I'll leave it to you folks. If you want to ask me questions, now's the time to do it, because I will answer it. Yes, sir.
Well, since you're running for statewide office, and I'd like to see how all the people running for statewide office answer this one. The state Supreme Court is forcing the legislature, telling it how much it has to pay on education. That's a breach of its constitutional powers. It's legislating from the bench. And I just want to know what you as a legislator intend to do about that to put them back in their place and force them to obey the law.
Well, the Washington State Constitution actually says there's a mandate that the legislature is supposed to actually fund education. We have a lot of money that's sitting out there that can be used for schools. Lottery, I remember when the lottery was first introduced, it was supposed to go to schools. I don't think it ever actually did. That is something that we can return to schools. There's programs that are doubled up on that we don't need, special pay. You'll enjoy this one. When I was over in Seattle, going to school, I learned about special pay for DOT employees. A gentleman who was living on Whidbey Island, traveling down to Seattle, was getting special pay to make that trip. Well, the special pay was $120,000 a year on top of his pay of, I think they were saying $85,000 a year. That special pay was 3 years past the end of that contract for that special pay. Long and short of it, where we need to find funding is we need to go over the budget once again. Eliminate the programs that aren't needed, that we don't need, find the funding, fund the schools, and in addition, Brian said something about the DREAM Act. Anybody has actually heard of the Real Hope Act here in Washington? No? That was something that the legislature passed. $5 million goes to folks who are not legal U.S. citizens. Your current representation in this district voted for that.
Yep.
Minus one. Brian excluded. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Thank you.
Do I have a choice?
You do, good.
Sherry.
Just wait, Sharon, till the mic gets there.
Oh,
We do have a roving mic, folks.
okay. I received this in the mail today.
You have to turn it on.
Okay, try to get close to it.
What is it? Well, tell us what it is. Push the button.
It is a letter from the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, located in Bellevue, Washington County.
Trust the electron.
You're on your own, Sherry.
Okay, as we all know, Obama is running the U.S. by executive order, bypassing Congress, which that is against the Constitution. Okay? That says, help stop Barack Obama's anti-gun executive orders. What I would like to ask Mr. Barker is, if Obama signs an executive order for you, if you were sheriff, to confiscate our guns, will you follow that order? And will you defend us from anyone who tries? Yeah.
Thank you. Mike? Where's Mike? What's the first order that we will not follow in the Oath Keepers.
Any unconstitutional order.
We will not. I will not. I am part of the Oath Keepers. I believe in our Second Amendment. I believe in your rights. I don't like thugs. You will not have a problem with the federal government if I am blessed to be your sheriff. Period.
You need more deputies.
Any questions?
Anybody got questions for Tony?
Tens of millions.
Okay, the written question is, with tens of millions of unemployed and more millions of retired people, why can't many of these people be used for backup situations? My apologies to the writer, I can't quite make out that word there. Passes, etc. So the main part of the question is, why can't we use people who are unemployed or retired for backup situations?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think we're going to have to, because the thing about the jobs plan is a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people think, well, I'm retired, I don't need to worry about it anymore, or I'm looking for that small part-time job. Anytime that you're turning an hour, that money is going to Social Security, it's going to Medicare. So if you take an 18-year-old person that's going on a job, or you take a retired person that's getting a part-time job, that money is being put back in. So there's so many people worried about Social Security, Medicare as they get to a certain age. The problem is, if we don't keep these people working, it's only going to get worse and worse. That would be my answer for that. Thank you.
Sure. Do you have a question for me, or?
Question, if you would like another written question.
Or I can take door number 3.
So this one does include a question for the assessor. Ready, sir?
I am ready.
Your question is, looks like it's a two-parter. Does the justice system actually dispense justice, or does it just serve the powers to be? Do you have a real estate license or property appraiser's license? Do you have the qualifications and experience that makes you the best candidate for the assessor?
Thank you very much for this question. First of all, as far as the judicial part of it goes, if I understand the question right, are you talking as assessor in enforcing those RCWs?
I think it is reasonable to answer the question in that way, yes.
Yes. The assessor's office is governed pretty much by the Department of Revenue. And if there's an RCW in place, you do have to follow those RCWs. Now, as an assessor, an elected official, you do have some latitude to communicate, I'll use that word, with the Department of Revenue and argue your case for any situation that might need some kind of relief. And the other question is, I had a real estate license until 2012 when I was appointed by the Board of Commissioners to be on the Board of Equalization. I did not renew my license because I felt that was a conflict of interest. And so I did not renew my license at that time.
Thank you.
Question? In reference to the Supreme Court's decision, it basically weighed whether or not the legislature was doing its job as per primary purpose is to finance education. Education budget now runs around 47% of the state. Back in the late 80s, it was running about 54%. And when you talk about the state budget, that's a significant reduction, and money's got siphoned off. As you look at the future in terms of education, and you talk about a specific figure for educating people, do you agree or disagree with the court's interpretation of the law and the responsibilities as far as the state legislature is concerned?
That's a really good question. So, and that kind of, Jack asked something about that earlier too, but so here's my opinion. Number one, I think that there was, if it wasn't a breach of separation of powers, I don't know what is. That's very close, if not a separation of powers breach by the Supreme Court. To answer that, the second part of that question, it's funny because I believe that there was actually, there's not enough pulling back of the unfunded mandates. And so that's one way that I would fund it. So to answer your question, I think that in certain circumstances, we're not getting the funding to schools that we need to. In other circumstances, we are. But where the problem really lies right now is with the flexibility at the school board level. I like that idea. I like the administration, and I like school boards having flexibility to decide where money is spent rather than having the No Child Left Behind Act or having a Common Core interpret that for them. So in my opinion, what should happen is the elected officials that are elected to these school boards should have more say. It was touched on earlier with the Washington State Lottery. Right now, the Washington State Lottery money goes into the general fund, and I'll talk to you about it later, I suppose. I just ran out of time. But thank you for your question.
There was a question posed to one of the candidates that was not running for assessor that kind of piqued my interest. It was a two-part question I would ask. It had to do with a bad employee. I would ask that you would read that question, or that part of that question, please. It really struck me. Well, let him read it really quick, if you can get it. Or I can synopsize it.
Would you please?
Yes, absolutely. It had to do with the supposition or the presupposing of a bad employee. With my experience with employees, to add a label to them like that in a supposition, I think is a bad thing to do. I think the assumption that we have a bad employee is also the assumption that we have bad leadership. I pinged on that question because we don't spend nearly enough time talking about our human capital. I'm talking about the people that work for elected officials that get the job done, the people that need training, support, development in their careers as well. Everybody knows they do the lion's share of the work. When I heard that premise of that question, it bothered me. Even though that might not have been in the spirit and intent of the question, it did bother me, and I wanted to respond to that because I'm very passionate about the training of the people that work for me. I want them to be the best trained and the most well-informed and educated possible. So I hope that was responsive enough to your first part of that question.
Does somebody in the audience have a question for me? In the yellow, you are the winner.
Okay. In your campaign literature, you said they don't teach math in high school anymore because kids can't get it. Right now in the state of Washington, it's required that a student in high school take Algebra 1, geometry, and pass end-of-course assessments as far as those two are concerned before they can graduate. They also have to take a third year of math, which is mostly Algebra 3, or excuse me, Algebra 2. They also have to pass a reading test before they can graduate. They have to do all of those things. Now, you said they couldn't read their degrees, and you said they don't teach math. I want to know where you got that information.
Okay, the question is, I said in my literature that the high school students, a lot of them cannot read their...
No, you said they don't. You said don't. You were pretty...
They don't, or a lot of them don't?
No, they don't. That's what you said. They don't take... Oh, I'm sorry. You said read. You said they don't teach math.
Yes, I said. Is this working?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I did say they don't teach math, and you want to know where I got that? I got that from KCVL. I got that from Eric Carpenter. He said this on the air 2 years ago. It was in the news for several days that at the high school, Colville High School, that math is no longer taught because the reason being that the students are not capable of learning it. Well, I did not believe that myself, and so I have a friend, his name is Don Elliott, and he's a math teacher and math tutor at the college here. So I asked him who would be better to ask. I asked him, I said, Don, what's with the college, with the high school math system here? I hear that we're not teaching math at the high school, and he said, that's right.
It isn't right.
Okay, well, that's where I got my information, was from Eric Carpenter and Don Elliott.
Wrong information.
I got wrong information.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Maybe it's called the core map.
Algebra 1, geometry, and they got to do end of course assessment, and they have to take a third year, which is most likely algebra 2. Those are facts. Let's check them.
I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, I have a question. Our property, we have a stick-built home. We have a barn and a shop, 40 acres. Our home is assessed at $123,000. Our next door neighbor has 20 acres, a single wide with an add-on, and a shop and a woodshed. His property is assessed at $131,000. So I would like to know why or how does someone who has a mobile home property be worth more and less property worth more than the other? How does that make it equal?
Well, that's a question that's been proposed before all of us assessors or candidates, as the disequalization of properties. And I think that's one of the reasons why I and several of the other candidates are running for this position. All the time, or when I talk to realtors and property owners, they can't understand why they're not equally balanced with their neighbors. I've talked to them down in Deer Lake, I've talked to many of the realtors here in town. And frankly, that's very concerning for me, because if they're not equalized, and that means we've got a regressive tax burden, and probably these taxes are being borne by those who are least able to pay. And that's one of the reasons I am running for county assessor.
Thank you.
Question?
We're going to go with all questions candidate.
Well, let's go. Let's see.
The question is, do you support this forum of only asking questions that can be answered only yes or no?
No, there's too much involved in a lot of these positions, not just my own, but they're very technical and they're very important positions, and they need to be in-depth answers and in-depth questions. There's no one right answer. It may be a little bit more black and white in forensics. It either is or it isn't, but for a lot of these positions, we need to delve into their backgrounds and what their thoughts are and how they're going to manage our money when they get into the position that they're going into, and a yes or no answer just isn't going to cut it for me.
question is, what is the one main job of the sheriff in his county above all other duties?
Protect the people.
Hello.
Just so whitey? No, darn. I wanted to do a picture up here. I'm going to answer two questions. First, the depression question. How are we going to avoid the depression and helping people from going into foreclosure? I want to correct some things real quick. You cannot lose your home in 1 year. It takes 4 years of delinquent taxes to go into foreclosure. So know that. That's a fear-monger move. You have 4 years before you lose your home. Next, low-income seniors have an option for an exemption program to protect them from losing their homes when they're on a set income. We have some great people doing a great job helping those seniors. Your home value is frozen, so that idea is there. It's wonderful. People's homes are frozen when they apply. Also, they have reduced levy rates, so there are programs to avoid foreclosures. Next, educate people at my age so that we know what we're doing when we're buying homes. Don't buy a home you can't afford. So when hard times come, you don't go into foreclosure. You're prepared for that. Next question. Mobile home and acres. I'm talking to you, ma'am. Okay. You asked the question. I thought you might want to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. 40 acres assessed to 123 with a house, a barn, and a shop. Mobile home with a shop and a barn, assessed for more. There's programs. That's a complicated question. I want to see your property personally. Let's answer that question. But in general, there could be exemptions that reduce values. Senior citizen is one, timber is another, farm and egg is another. Maybe someone to the Board of Equalization and had their property reduced. But what that does, because we're budget-based, is it brings the neighbor's property up, because that district area has to meet the budget. Maybe your property isn't, no, that is not wrong.
That's wrong. The right answer is wrong.
Okay, the philosophy, you disagree with it. I understand that, but that is the law right now. If we want to change that, let's talk to our senators, representatives. We can get that fixed, but that is the law right now. So, your home is sitting on, all right, come into the office, we'll explain this, we'll get things fixed if you want to. That's our job.
1878 Constitution, let it stand.
Yep.
We're ready to start the final rounds of questions. I am willing to open it up to the candidates if you want to take any open question. Folks, you don't have to frame it in a yes or no answer. Since this is our final question and we're running a little ahead of time, I think we can expand our time a bit. So we're going to start again with Mr. Apker.
Once again, if you folks have any questions, I am more than willing to answer. Yes, sir.
Are you in favor of charter schools?
Oh, absolutely. In every way, shape, and form, I am all in favor of charter schools. The reason being, one, someone had talked about math. Here's one thing I learned when I was in college. Everybody learns differently. Everyone. To teach one style fits all for every student does not work. It doesn't. You know this, I know this. Whether other people know this is beyond me, but setting up charter schools will allow parents, grandparents, foster parents, guardians, the Van Boon, everybody to choose how your child is taught, what they're taught, when they're taught. Great idea here. Who likes to hunt here? Who likes to go fishing? If you find that as an important skill to have and you want to instill those values in your child, a charter school would be perfect for that. Or even better, if you want to teach your children at home, same thing. You should be able to teach your child, instill your children with values that you have.
First, any questions out there for a potential sheriff? I want to make a recognition. How many of you are military? Please stand up. I want to thank you for your service. All of you stand up. second recognition. All of these men and women sitting here, our spouses are putting up with us being gone and doing the things that we do, okay? The 18th of this month, which is Friday, stand up, Candy, is our 33rd wedding anniversary. Okay? The sheriff, and let me ask this, how many of you are aware that the sheriff has ultimate authority in the county?
Yes.
Okay, most of the hands went up. For those of you that don't know this, it has been since 1200 AD, the sheriff has had ultimate authority. You can look that up. The sheriff, yes, Sharif. It's Shire, which was a province. Reef, which was the officer. It was put together by the king in 1200. Since then, the English slipping together like it did, it came out sheriff, which is what we have. The point about that is, if the sheriff has ultimate authority in the county, then why do we have so many problems in the county with the feds coming in? DOE, DHS, farm, fish and game, and so forth. Why are we having so many problems? That's affecting your land rights, your property rights, your personal rights, and your liberties. That needs to be addressed, and the sheriff is the one that does that, working with his commissioners and the prosecuting attorney, or the assessor, or the other agent, people in that those offices that he would be working with in order to protect and serve you, the people, and be a peace officer. I am not a law enforcement officer. I am a peace officer and have been ever since I was a kid. Thank you.
Anyone have a question I can answer? Go ahead.
Okay, Governor Inslee commuted the death sentences of 9 criminals who were up for capital punishment. They all killed either women or children or both. I think he has been derelict in his duty and flagrantly disregarded his oath of office. What would you as a legislature, would you plan to do about something like that?
Well, first of all, I agree with you, and you've asked me that question before, and I've done a little bit of homework on that. He does have executive power to do that, but one of the things that I think we should have gotten together as senators and representatives is they should have came up with something to try to make that change, because we do have that in our state law that it is, death penalty was available at that time. Why he took it away, I was not in office, but to answer it, I would vote to where they should have had the death penalty, and that's how to answer that. Hope I answered that correctly for you.
Ma'am, would it be okay if I answered your question, because you still haven't received an answer yet?
Sure.
Would that be acceptable?
No.
The reason there's a difference is because mobile homes have to be compared to mobile homes that sold on a relatively the same size property with the same other outbuildings. A stick building has to be compared with stick building. Now, what happens is there's acreage creep. What happens, the larger the acreage or parcel, the less, this is a general rule, the less per acre in value. The smaller it is, the larger in value for the smaller parcel.
But doesn't that have to do with the Growth Management Act?
It does not. It has to do with the sales that have occurred in the area, in your region, okay, that suggest the value of the property that's being assessed. And you know that your neighbor doesn't have any special programs that he or she is qualified in, and you're not in a special program either, is that correct?
Nope.
So you know that doesn't apply, okay? But they have to compare, they can't compare your property with your neighbor's, because one's a stick building and the other is a mobile home. So you have to compare them with equal structures. And I hope that clarifies it a little bit better. Okay.
All right, I'll take one of those yes or no questions.
Brian, now that Jason Overstreet has retired, what are your expectations of being able to move forward any of the freedom agenda with the next session?
Well, that's a good question.
What is the question?
With the retirement of Representative Overstreet, what are my expectations of moving Freedom Agenda items next session?
What are they?
Boy, I'd waste all my time going into what they are.
Your
So
time's on hold while you restate your question.
I restated the question, but I guess some of the things that the Freedom Agenda work for is less government, less regulations, more opportunities for people. They were opposed to the DREAM Act, the Real Hope Act, and so we had a representative from the other side of the state that's fairly conservative that retired, and the question was, now that he retired, how are we going to get things done? The first thing I'll say is that Jason was in the House of Representatives, and so he was a pretty good ally to Eastern Washington when it came to like natural resource extraction. One of the bills that I'll be running this year with Representative Shea will be the bill that will turn over federal lands to the state and then down to the counties and pilot projects to try and help fund education, number one, but put people back to work and take care of our forests. You know, you look at like Buckhorn Mine, where I come from, we weren't able to do permitting like we should have been able to, and then an expedient amount of time, and we're going to have about 60% of the economy of Ferry County go away. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm bothered about. The other things, one of the other things, we have a lot of elections going on this year to replace a lot of folks or vote people back into office. So the whole shakeup of the legislature is going to be in question. So there's going to be a learning experience, and that's why you have your reorganization meetings when you go back after the election and you get your committee assignments. I'm excited that I'm on natural resources and I'm the vice chairman of that committee. That's a pretty important committee to be on for our area. Thanks for the question.
All right, I'm open for fire. Any questions for me? We're all good. Yes, ma'am.
I have one. I have another neighbor who,
I don't know.
I live on a private road. The property was sold 2 years ago. There has been a double wide on it for, I'd say 5 or 6 years at least. There is a well, a septic, and electricity to it. Their property taxes was only for land and was not taxed until I called the assessor's office last year and told them that there was a double wide on the property. But the thing is that I'm still wondering if these people, like what happened to us last year because we were reassessed, okay, our well, our electricity, and our septic were all considered home improvements and jacked up our property taxes. And these people probably didn't pay any of it.
Well, that is a very complicated question. And my answer to it is, the only way that a correct answer or response to that would be to have you come in and we would have to dissect that. I've never worked in this office before, so there's a lot of things that would go into answering that question correctly. The straight scoop, I don't know. And there's no way I could know until I talked to the people that appraised that, your property and the one next to it, and laid all the facts out on the table and the timelines. There might have been a difference in a timeline between yours and that property. It's on a cycle. So I would have you come into the office and we would systematically tear that down so we could get you the correct answer, not just, you know, some who shot John. So the correct answer is, I have no idea. And nobody here could answer that question for you succinctly and correctly unless we looked into every fact in that case.
Well, I know that the rest of my neighbors on our private road were all assessed septic, electric, and water, and their property taxes went up too, except for this one home that was just considered land.
what I can tell you is that anything I would say to you would not have a basis. So to be fair to you, I would have to look into those facts, ma'am, I really would. And I would have to use the expertise of the people who are in that office right now to come to that conclusion. And that's exactly what I would do if I were there. So I don't mean to be unresponsive to you, ma'am, but I don't have the tools in front of me to accurately answer that question that would make any sense to you or anybody else here. So I would have to ask you to come back and say,
Okay, somebody, you want to fight over it?
You're running in part on a platform to reduce costs in the coroner's office. You also want to inject a level of competency and accountability in the office. I agree with that. But as to the budgetary aspect, what do you know about the costs of the autopsies, and how does that play into your overall plan to reduce costs in the coroner's office?
Okay, did anyone hear the question?
Yes.
Okay, everyone knows the question. How do I plan to reduce costs in the coroner's office related to autopsies?
Right.
Okay. The cost of autopsies is major in the coroner's office. It is absolutely major. It's running probably, I say probably from the information I'm getting from the commissioner's office, about $150,000 to $175,000 per year. Now, this is at the rate of $5,000 per autopsy. This is when we send a deceased to Spokane Medical Examiner for autopsy. I can cut this, I know I can cut this by 50%, probably more than this, by bringing in a pathologist, a forensic pathologist from out of the area, and bringing him to this area to conduct autopsies right here in Colville. Okay, I can save at least 50% of the cost, maybe more. Was there another part to the question?
That was with the bulk of it. I wanted to know what other accountability do you want to inject into the office?
What other accountability do I want to inject into the office? Let me get my notes and I'll tell you. I do want to make the coroner's office accountable. I want to show you, the taxpayers, okay, how the money that goes into the coroner's office is spent, where the tax dollars are going, and how many autopsies are performed. And this information is not available to me right now, but I will make it available to you as soon as I get it. I promise you that.
First, are there any more questions out there that I can't answer?
All right, a general question then. Do you believe in the U.S. Constitution and the rule of law?
Well, absolutely. I delayed my campaign for about 12 years. I was going to run for county assessor in 2002 when my former boss, Blanche, stepped down, but I had a constitutional duty to serve my country. I was being deployed to Iraq, so I raised my arm to the square, defend it with my life, and I spent 2.5 years in the war zone doing that. And I believe in the Constitution. I put my life on the line.
Go. All right. Okay, go ahead. Good question.
So the idea of bringing in a pathologist to be employed full-time in our county, is that financially feasible since you do have the experience of having all this background?
No, it's not at all feasible. There's about 400, it's forensic pathologist. There's a difference between a pathologist and a forensic pathologist. There are about 400 forensic pathologists in the United States. On average, they make $180,000 per year. That's why we send our cases to Spokane. Our entire operating budget for the coroner's office is $173,000 annually. Our coroner spends an autopsy budget. She has up to $70,000 per year annually, and we've not ever reached that budget amount. We do not do 150 autopsy cases. We don't do that kind of work. We investigate on average about 75 to 80 deaths per year, and we autopsy on average 30. The autopsy cost is $2,500 to $3,000. That is public record. It's available to anybody who wants to review that. You will not get a forensic pathologist to come here to Colville for that kind of money.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Any questions?
Is it a crime to kill a horse, shoot a horse?
No.
You don't get hung like in the movies? We had a horse shot and reported it, and it was like a joke.
Well, the thing of it is, if it's your horse and the horse is sick and you need to put it down, I understand that.
No, the neighbor shot it. Somebody else shot it.
The neighbor shot it? Did you know who the neighbor was?
More or less.
Then you should have had that reported and the sheriff should have come out and arrested that man.
Mr. Allen? Kendall Allen come out and
Yeah, I would. That needs to be addressed. Yes. That needs to be addressed, 100%. That lady beside you had a question.
Yes, I did. The Washington state government wants to use backdoor to gun registration. Where do you stand on the right to keep and bear arms?
Well, our right to keep and bear arms, our Second Amendment, so that should be upheld, period. There's no reason you can't. The Constitution is the most valuable thing on the planet, and our right to keep and bear arms is right behind that.
Did I raise any questions? Back row.
Yes, we have mentioned that you go by the budget. And in a certain area, everybody is taxed to meet that budget. So what's the use of even appraising property when there's a budget to meet, and that's all they go by, is just the budget?
Okay.
So everybody's got to pay the same amount, so why appraise property at all?
Okay, taxes are created by multiplying the value of your property by the levy rate, decided by your taxing districts. So the more value on your property multiplied by the same levy rate everyone has in their district, have the higher values, going to pay the higher taxes, unless you have a special program. So there's that. Now, I think I'm hearing people saying they don't like a budget-based taxing system. They don't want to. Okay, so I'm hearing that. So I'm bound by the law, and I know you don't agree with the Constitution as it says today. So if you want to change that, you need to get 2/3 of the House to vote a new Constitution in. So if you want to change how we assess property and collect taxes, we need to talk to these men. Now, we need to come with them with a business plan. We need to come to a bank saying, here's what we like, here's what we want to do. We can't just yell at them and say, stop doing this, change it. We need to give them ideas. I have a few. It's far more complicated than 15 seconds. So call me, talk to the people in this community, talk to businesses who are prospering on different ways of collecting money. There are ways to do it. I've done the research myself, but we need to get a hold of them with legitimate ideas. We can't just yell at them. We have to speak to them.